Hello and welcome back to Marineford TCG. My name is Joe. Drink of the day is a chocolate milk. And with OP15 now having been out for quite a while, going on for a month, I figured now's about time to take a look where are the prices now and which of these cards are worth picking up and which aren't. Also, after we talk about OP15, I'm going to have some recommendations for cards that I'm currently selling and cards that you could consider buying both for OP16 and also just cards that are generally quite cheap right now. But first, if you're looking for the coolest TCG accessories on the market, you've got to check out Sleeve Chief. They've got sleeves, they've got binders, they've got deck boxes. Your favourite characters or original designs, Sleeve Chief has it all. And if you do purchase anything, you can use code MARINE for 5% off. Thank you to Sleeve Chief for sponsoring this video. Now, in terms of the SRs out of OP15, there are really two that have kind of broken away from the rest, the Borsalino and Zorro, but they've got very different charts. When this set first came out, Borsalino was crazy high, and he has just fallen over time. After we got that announcement that the Borsalino and Rayquaza were going to be link banned, this obviously lost a lot of hype. It's still incredibly good in pretty much every yellow deck. Nami is the best deck that is taking great advantage of Borsalino currently, but you'll see this in Calgara, you'll see this in Yellow NL, you'll see this in BY Luffy, in UI Ace, which some people are playing at the minute. If you're playing Yellow, you're pretty much just playing Borsalino, and that is reflected in this price of about £12. I don't think this is crazy. It's a little bit higher than I'd like, but I know this is worse in America, and I don't think £12, considering that these SRs have increased rarity, right? In your average set, you've got 10. In this set, I think it's 15, but let's double check that. It's 14. There's 14 SRs in this set, so slightly higher than usual. If you're thinking about OP16, I think this is likely to see play in Teach just because of how good the card is. The fact that it's a blocker that just effectively draws you a card in the card that you heal, gives you another opportunity for a trigger, gives you another hit you can take. It's like a double heal because it's a blocker, which is kind of nuts. And it's a 1k. This is the best heal card we've ever seen, in my opinion. And I don't know if this will drop much more from here. £12 for this card doesn't seem too crazy. But you never know. As sets get older, prices do generally come down. But if OP16 comes out and yellow is even better, then don't forget about this card. This card is definitely one that is going to have strong potential into the future. And Red Zorro is another. I'm not sure whether you'll play this in Red Ace in OP16, but right now, this has kind of got the opposite chart of Borsalino. He's actually risen a decent amount since release. This is obviously being quite successful in Red Blue Ace currently, and also in Red Green Luffy, which Red Green Luffy wasn't, I don't think, too high on a lot of people's like hype charts going into this set, but he's been performing incredibly well. Was able to take down the Double Dawn tournament and frequently tops like Chinois Cups and what little events we have had so far. I think just having even matchups into all of the most popular decks gives Red Green Luffy a good chance, and the fact this is also in Ace, which is again a top deck, I think gives a lot of credence to where this guy's price is at around £11 to £12 as well. Same as Borsalino, which is kind of crazy. If you are planning on playing Red Green Luffy or Ace, I probably would look to pick these up soon. It could come down. The set is getting older, of course, and there will be new hype for new stuff once OP16 comes out. But if you're planning on playing those decks in OP15, there's only so long left of this format, so I would just grab these now, personally. Most of the other SRs aren't too bad. There's a few that have a little bit of value. Rebecca currently sitting at around £4 or £5. It's quite funny to me that this is more expensive than the Sabo. Of course, Rebecca is usable in more decks. Some builds of Blue Rebecca do play Sabo, but many don't. So this Sabo is basically just a Lucy card, whereas the Rebecca can obviously see play in Rebecca as well. But the fact that the price is like 2 to 3 times as much, I think is kind of crazy to me. I didn't know Rebecca as a leader was that popular, but here we are, I guess. This card's also good in Usopp, but I think Sabo is also probably pretty good in Usopp. and Usopp is not very good. So I think the disparity on that one's quite funny. And if you do see yourself as maybe a Lucy player in the future, I would definitely pick up these Sarbos, because sort of £2 for how good this card is seems pretty cheap to me. The other two that got a bit of value are the Roronozo and Marmaragon. This is likely to be a fairly staple yellow card. It's just a 4-don heal. There's nothing wrong with that. £3 or £4, not too bad, especially with how, I think, flexible this card is. Of course, this is currently seeing some playing Nami, seeing playing Calgara, seeing playing Sky Luffy. I forgot about him earlier when we were talking about Borsalino. But yeah, it's good in that deck. Nice target for your Robin. And I think you will likely see this going forwards as sort of an alternative, or I think maybe upgrade on Kikunojo. Of course, you don't have that nasty trigger, but the fact that you always get the heal is much more proactive, and it can save you late game. Whereas playing a Kiku late game just does nothing. But playing this Zoro can get you that heal that you maybe need to survive another turn. So I don't think £3 or £4 for this is unreasonable. And finally, the last one with a little bit of value is Marmaragon. This is in, obviously, Purple and Nell. You're also seeing this be experimented with in other decks. I've seen this in UP Sanji. I've seen this in GP Luffy, PB Luffy, Lim. I've seen this. It's just a really good effect, especially if you are a deck that is happy to sit around 6 Don so that you can use the counter effect. Of course, in some matchups, the main is not going to be useful. If your opponent is not playing small blockers, well, it doesn't do anything on main, but the fact that the counter effect just gives you a 1k and lets you draw a card is exceptional for card economy, and also helps with your consistency. So I can see why people are experimenting with this card a lot in a lot of different decks. I don't think this is going to see an increased play rate in OP16. Sengoku, I very much doubt will play this. Maybe. I guess on the turn after you play your Admirals, you are going to be at 6 or less Don. But I'm not personally convinced that you'll want to play this in Sengoku. But it's not a bad card. For £3 or £4, it's a staple part of a Nell. If you're planning on playing a Nell this format or next format, just cop these now, in my opinion. Now, the rest of these SRs are very cheap. The blocker Nell has absolutely fallen off in price since release. He wasn't that expensive to begin with, but now he is 50p. Yeah, as time has gone on and Nell builds have evolved, people are just not playing this card anymore. People are preferring to play things like the Senor Pink engine, the 4-cost Frankie, and the 4-cost Reiju. Just have a bit more flexibility in your options, a little bit less vulnerable to Luna, and a little bit better at taking out your opponent's board, which are all really nice effects. And there's an L making you trash a card to become a blocker, and also not attack with it on subsequent turns if you want to block. You do kind of lose a lot of value, and he's very vulnerable to getting rested by things like a 4-cost Nami, and then just frozen with Luna, which is never great. So I'm not surprised this Nell's quite cheap. And the rest of these as well. Kobe, man. One day he'll be good, but this set is not it. It's not it, this set. It's a shame. I think the Enel matchup for me is just really tricky, especially if they get first. If you get first, you can maybe do something, because you get to play like 2 guys, 3-cost Ipari and then something else, before they get to play their Enel. But if they get first and they go Holly into Enel, it feels like the game's already over, which is kind of crazy, but that's Enel. He's pretty explosive, and I think too explosive for Kobe. If you are a believer in any of these other decks, I would definitely recommend picking up any of these SRs from Brook down, because they're all dirt cheap. Brook in particular is doing decently in a few different decks. Obviously, RG Luffy is the main one, but you see this also in GP Luffy, and also in some more rogue green Straw Hat decks, like Green Jinbei. I think this card has good potential for the future in those decks, and if we get other green Straw Hat decks, which we are getting one in OP16, I'm not sure if this will go in blue-green Impelled Down Luffy, because of that Impelled Down restriction, but it's an option that will be nice to have, and the effect of this card is just very, very strong. The other ones, the Nami is kind of probably at her peak right now, unless we get more buffs to the Brook deck. People are experimenting with it in BY Luffy. I've played against a few of them on the ladder. it doesn't feel very good. BY Luffy in general, not this Nami particularly. I think this Nami actually is very good. Bringing back the Robin and giving it Rush seems strong. But yeah, this Nami's nice for that. It's also nice for purple black. But I think a lot of these black Straw Hat decks just have some issues at the moment. They just feel a little bit behind the times, despite having gained this new Nami. So I think picking these up could be good. And I would definitely pick up your Krieg SRs. I mean, these are dirt cheap. Like, look at this, 20p. If you can get these off your locals, you know, pick up a playset for £1 or €1, I think it's a no-brainer for me, because Krieg could easily get buffs in the future and be a lot more viable in the format. Even if he's all right now. He's definitely not shit. It's like an off-meta deck. But I could see him having better performance in the future if he does get 1 or 2 more support cards. A second thing to do on 4 would be really nice alongside the Arlong. Because it feels like if you whiff Arlong, your Fordon turns kind of cheeks, I'm not going to lie. That's it for SRs, but we'll talk about the secret rares as well, briefly. So these are the 3 secret rares. In a normal set, you have 2, and in a case, you get 4 each. In this set, because there's 3, you get 3, 3, and 2, and one of these is far worse than the others. This 10-cost Luffy is just not that good. Blue Yellow Nami, I think, was one of the decks that I thought this might have potential in, but it turns out with Red Rock gone and Rhaego not that popular. Whitebeard's just kind of better. Luffy to be a 10-12 blocker demands that you give up a card, whereas Whitebeard draws you 2 and trashes 1. So Whitebeard goes hand neutral, Luffy goes -2, and you do get that buff, but the buff's not that crazy when you've already got a 10-12 block to get out of one swing for free, and especially in Nami where your leader effect negates a lot of hits anyway from like your opponent's smaller guys. Where this card is right at home is currently, you see sometimes 1 or 2 in Yellow and Nell, but also in Red Yellow Bonnie. Red Yellow Bonnie is not doing that great right now. I think she has some difficulties dealing with the 6-cost Nels that Nell's able to put out. But this card is a staple in that deck. So if you want to play Red Yellow Bonnie, or you think you might like to in the future, it's a very generic leader, could easily make use of good cards in the future coming up. And this Luffy is very, very good in Red Yellow Bonnie, but that's kind of about it. Whereas these other 2 are much more flexible. The Sky Luffy has risen a little bit since release. He's obviously very good in Sky Luffy, the new Yellow Luffy deck. But you also see this in some builds of Blue Yellow Nami. You see this in Calgara. I've seen this in pretty much, again, any yellow deck can consider playing this Luffy. It's just a really nice option. Into a Nell, if they want to counter with their events or block with a blocker, he just becomes bigger, which is great. And just as a generic rush option, this is one of the better ones we've seen. People were playing the 5/7 Yellow Ace from ST13 for quite a while as like a tech rush choice. And this is simply that, but miles better. The condition's so much easier to meet, and that extra bonus of kind of soft denying blockers and counter events is lovely. I think this is a little overpriced at 20 quid. If you're looking to play Sky Luffy, you're going to need these, unfortunately. And Sky Luffy is one of the better decks right now. I think Nami can absolutely make do without this deck, this card. You're only really playing this if you're not playing Thriller Bark. But if you do want to play Sky Luffy, you do kind of need this one. And the best secret you can get from the set is an L. Currently looking at £25 and up for this. This is a 4 of an L. It is miles better than the other one. It helps you chain your combo plays together by being that big body that just sets you up for your next turn. You can grab an event off the on-play. You can grab another Enel off the on-play. Grab whatever you like. And the fact that your opponent doesn't know what you've taken is also just a massive boon as well, because they don't know what to play around. A lot of Enel's big plays are combos. You'll reduce something, then you'll rest it, then you'll freeze it. So increasing the chance of you having all those cards in your hand at the same time is where this card comes in clutch. I've seen people experiment with this outside of an L. I've not been terribly impressed. I've seen this in Sanji builds. I've seen this in the odd like off-meta Reiju build. But this card is really just an Enel card. And if you want to play Enel, who is probably the best deck in this format, you need 4 of these. The price is the price. If you don't want to play Enel, don't pick this up now. But if you do, you've probably already got them. Now, in terms of cards that are currently kind of going up a lot in price, that you could consider getting rid of if you're not planning on playing them or if you have spares, the first one I'll talk about is Electrical Luna. This has just gone up in play rate massively, this set. You saw a little bit of it last set, but not very much. But in this set, with all the Enels going around, all the Sabo blockers, and even into Nami, this can freeze things like their Nami, their Robin, and all their Thriller Bark stuff. This card is seeing a lot of success. I would definitely recommend looking in your bulk, seeing if you've got more than a playset. I'd carefully consider selling your spares. I had 6, and I've sold 2. I've kept 4, and I've got 2 of the full art and 2 of the regular art. But I would definitely recommend at least considering selling some Lunas if you're either not planning on using them or if you have spares. It's like 3 to 5 quid for these is what these are sort of going for, depending on what country in the EU you're from. Of course, you can see some of these here, as low as 3 quid, but if you're not from Switzerland, maybe the price of postage is very expensive. And in the UK, these are about £5. That's what I sold 2 for, is £5. So I think personally now is a very good time to sell Electrical Luna. Could it see more play next format? Maybe. We don't really know. Looking at the decks that are in that format, Blackbeard, I don't think he's going to care too much if his stuff gets frozen, and I can see him playing a lot of top end. Ace is definitely going to be playing a good amount of top end. Sengoku's guys are all 7, so that is the threshold for Electrical Luna. But I forget which one. One of them restands himself anyway at the end of the turn. So I think now is probably the height of this card's capabilities. If I had to guess, and the price has sort of topped off at around 350 over the last week or so. There's also the full art version of this. This was from the most recent best selection, and the price on this absolutely skyrocketed. Look, around what was that? Around a month ago, actually. Once this format started coming out, and it became apparent quite how powerful Luna was. So again, if you've got these and you're not planning on using them, £13 seems to be the floor. This guy's got 47. What the fuck? 47 is crazy. But yeah, you can get like £12.50 for these, and that is half the price of the entire binder, which is kind of mad. These binders, I always say, if you can get them, buy 4, because they're always good value. You get to use loads of nice shiny alt arts, and then over like the next year, you can guarantee a couple of them will be worth like a tenner each. Then you can sell those, and you've got all the other ones for free, effectively, which is awesome. Or you can just use them if you like this deck with RG Luffy, for example. You can just use these Lunas, these shiny ones. Then it is really, really nice art. But I think for me, now is a good time to be selling Lunas. I wouldn't be buying them unless I really needed them for a deck. Another card that you might really need for a deck is Reiju. This was not seeing a lot of play in an L in Japan from the limited bit of time we saw beforehand. But this is starting to see a lot more play in the West. The fact that this card dodges Luna is really nice. It can't be frozen, can't be stunned. And it's one of the only things in that deck that cannot be stunned. Because, of course, they only have 6 dodds. They can't play big guys. Varier is another option, which is interesting. I wouldn't be surprised to see more Varier play in the future if Luna does become a big problem for an L. But this Reiju is the way they're trying to deal with it at the minute. It's just a 4/7 blocker. And it's risen again from literal pennies to like £2-3. If you are planning on playing an L, you might want to grab some of these, and there's still some for pretty cheap. Still a bunch under £1. But if you've got a playset, you can probably command a bit of a premium. Or if you're in the UK, you can command a bit of a premium. And I think now is not a bad time to be selling this Reiju, personally. One alt that I honestly, I think this alt is disgusting. No shade to this artist. I'm sure they've done a good job with what they were going for. But this is a revolting alt of a revolting character. Not just visually. This guy was an absolute bastard in the show. One of the worst written characters in every way. He was not funny. He was not a nice guy. He just lied to his wife for years. Horrible character. And he's now being used to great success in an L. So the reason people are playing this is mainly to grab back Gamma Knife. You play the pink, you do the Don -1, grab back Gamma Knife. Then once you use your leader effect with an L, you're going to have 2 active Don, which lets you then use Gamma Knife. And then you can follow that up with an L4 or just an attack. This lets you play into your opponent's board very, very efficiently, which is just a massive benefit to the deck. It sort of gives you more of an answer to those Lunar style decks, or even just other decks that want to have a big board and try and answer you in the late game. You can just go, nope, I got to play my 6/10 on 5, and now I'm going to remove everything that you play. And developing a 5/6 isn't that bad, because when you slap 4 Don on him, he swings for 10. It's crazy. Very, very good card in an L. I think this is the best this card will be for a long time. So if you do have the alts of this, I would consider selling them. And you can see mine is listed. So there we go. Gecko Moria is another one that has sort of risen a lot in play this set. Of course, Blackula Moria is seeing more success than he did in the previous set, having gained that 1-cost hog back. But primarily this is in Nami, right? The vast majority of Nami builds are playing Thriller Bark. You don't have to. There are non-Thriller Bark builds. But the Thriller Bark builds are for sure the most popular, and probably slightly more successful on average. £5-6 for this card isn't too bad. I don't think this will see more play in OP16. I find it very unlikely Blackbeard will play this, because he seems forced into the Blackbeard archetype by his leader effect. But you never know, I guess. But yeah, I think this Moria is pretty good right now. And I think now is not the worst time to be selling, especially if you don't particularly enjoy the Thriller Bark archetype. And the alts of this are going crazy as well. The alt art Moria is like 25 quid. I think if you got these, again, now is a pretty good time to sell, in my opinion. But there's no guarantees on what will happen next set. If none of these leaders are that good, Thriller Bark Nami may still be one of the best decks. So if you do enjoy the deck, I probably wouldn't bother selling. But if you're not someone that enjoys Thriller Bark package and you have spares of these in your binder, I think now is a pretty good time. One other card that I've been selling is this Fire Fist. I had a playset of these from whatever the hell binder it was from back in the day, and this has been pretty bad up until now. It's currently seeing a decent amount of play in Lucy. You can combo this with the 7-cost Fire Fist off your Sabo to effectively remove a 12k, which is nuts. The 7-cost Fire Fist wants you to trash 2 cards to pop something. Well, if you just play this Fire Fist, you can pop something bigger, and you only have to trash 1 card, the Fire Fist, right? So this is a really nice combo piece in Lucy. You don't see this in all builds, but you do see this in a lot of builds. And this is a really nice alt art with Rebecca on it. So if you do have spares of these that you've had from back in the day when you bought your binders, now's not a bad time to sell. You can get sort of between £5 and £7 for this, which I think is probably the most this card's ever going to be. Because the effect isn't that good, but it does combo exceptionally well with Lucy. One card that I find the price rise a little more confusing on is Roger. Roger is no doubt good this set. He's still like a 2-of in Ace, the same he's been for, God, since Ace came out. And there's also sort of about a 1-of in a lot of Lucy builds. But 20 quid for a secret rare that's like a 1-of or a 2-of in 2 good decks, but not like, it's not an L. And an L's the best deck. I don't think either Lucy or Ace are the best deck, but I guess it's just showing to this card's age. OP09 was quite a while ago now. It's a 1.5 years old. And it's also Goldie Roger, so there is some level of collectability to this card. The art is awesome, and the character, he's the King of the Pirates, right? He's a very iconic character, so I guess that explains some of the price. For me, 20 quid's just too high, and I am selling my spare Rogers. I think I ended up with 4, which is kind of wild. But yeah, you only ever really need 2 of this for a deck. Even Red Purple Roger would only ever play this at like 2. So if you've got more than 2, I think now is a really good time to sell your Rogers. And one other card that I've sold recently is this Boa. This Boa has gone from seeing 0 play to actually quite a lot, because it can stun an L. Blue decks obviously cannot remove an L because he is unremovable, who would have thought. But this Boa can stun it whilst bottom decking a Priest, which is really good. Obviously, it's good in other matchups as well. You can stun whatever you like, as long as it's not named Monkey D. Luffy. The lore text there is actually quite funny, because it's quite relevant at the minute. In that you can't stun the double attack Luffy in RG. Or in GP, if anyone's playing it in that. or the black Luffy in Brook, which more off meta, and also the yellow Luffy in all the yellow decks. So there's actually quite a lot of Luffys that this card cannot stun at the minute. But there's a lot of cards this card can stun still. Primarily Enel is one of the most important ones. But also into Lucy, being able to stun a Sabo and then bot deck a Rebecca blocker is also just really value efficient. As for why the price is so high, this card's from OP7 and it's never had a reprint in the PRB. There are about 1,000 alts of this card, I can show you. Look at all these alts. There's too many for the page. There's a crazy number of alts of this card. My favourite is still the one from the set, the one with her doing the Love beam. That's probably my favourite. But yeah, a ton of different alts. You can choose your favourite. They're all pretty expensive though. A bunch of these from binders as well. But for me, I think £5 is just a little too much, and that's why I have sold my playset. I picked these up on the off chance that I wanted to play something like an Ace or a Lucy that played this card, but that's not really been the case. And as what decks are playing this, Rebecca is playing this as a pretty... I've seen there's a 4 of in a lot of Rebecca builds. And you're also seeing this play in Red Blue Ace. As a sort of a way to stall the game out a little bit until you can get to your white bid blockers. Because once you get to those white bid blockers, the 6-cost Enels, you have some game against them. You can rest your white bid blocker to block. But up to that point, get buying that one turn by stunning an Enel, bottom decking a priest, and developing a pretty good body, it is really nice for ace players. The final card I want to talk about in the cards I would be looking to potentially sell is this Monkey D. Luffy, the secret rare from OP13. Of course, this was a bit rarer than your average secret rare because there were 3 in that set. But this card is kind of at the height of his powers right now in Red-Green Luffy. Red-Green Luffy is finally, in some people's eyes, a top-tier deck. In most people's eyes, at least tier 2. He's performing very, very well. And this is a mainstay 4-of staple in that deck. It's one of the best things you can do. And double attack right now is just very useful as well. A lot of yellow decks rolling around, even in sort of your tier 2s and below. A lot of yellow, and double attack's great into them. And double attack is also pretty good into Enel. Because with this guy having a pretty high stat line, if you can burn through a couple lives at the same time, say you swing 9, you're asking them a tough question. Do they want to counter that 9? Probably not. But do they want to take that 9 if you've already dealt 1 to 2 damage, which they love taking early hits? Again, probably not. So this Luffy asks a lot of tough questions of your opponents, and is great in RG, but 20 quid? I don't know, man. 20 quid's kind of crazy. If you want to play the deck, I mean, it is what it is. But if you're not planning on playing RG, and you've got spares of these, I think now is a pretty good time to sell. Surely this can't go much higher than 20 quid. We've not seen many secrets get higher than 20 over the course of the game. Yellow Kanakuri was one. I'm sure there's been others as well, but I just can't remember right now. Bon Clay got crazy. And the other 6-cost Luffy, the one from PRB... EBO2. But this is just from a main set, and there is a reprint of OP13 coming relatively soon as well. So I would be careful buying this now unless you're planning on just playing the deck. One other card that I think requires a little bit of thought is Nami, the EBO3 one. This price has settled now at around £20. There's a number here you can get for between 20 and 22. This is obviously very good in Nami. That is the primary home for this card, but you see it in Yellow Luffy. You see this in some builds of Calgara. You can see this in pretty much any yellow deck again. It's just a really generically good card. In general, I think this card has good potential going forwards. It's not lead locked to anything. It's just kind of free. But the only reason I would be a little bit more hesitant on this is the price is already really high. And there is an EBO3 reprint coming. I don't know if we've got the exact date on when that is. But when that reprint does come out, this will drop in price. And I'm not sure you'll play this in Blackbeard either. So I think you could probably hold off on this one, personally. But I think she definitely does have good potential for the future. And if you do love having your playsets, this is sort of steadied out at around £20 now. It was very, very high on release. I think I saw some go for upwards of 40, which was nuts. And 20 is expensive, but it's not the worst. Now, in terms of some cards you could look at picking up if you haven't got them yet, I think one that's just generally good is this Nugate. Now, he's seeing a lot of play at the moment. You're obviously an Ace. You're also seeing this in Nami. You're also seeing this creep into some builds of Lucy. And the price has risen a little bit. You're around £1.50. But there are still a lot of these very cheap. And if you don't have your place at a Nugate, I think as we go forwards into this format, this guy's going to see more and more success. Without Red Rock in the format, there are now far fewer ways to actually deal with this card. This guy just kind of sticks, and now that you can't deal with him easily with things like Red Rock, he's a bit of a menace at the minute. Of course, there are other ways. Lucy is playing like the 5s combo. Yellow decks can play Rhaego, but this guy is seeing more and more success now that rotation's happened, and I don't see this card going anywhere particularly. Would not be surprised to see this in very many blue decks going forwards. And then with no PRBO3 confirmed, I think whilst this is still pretty cheap, now's a good time to pick this up. Now, I don't have a lot to talk about with regards to the Ace and Luffy style deck. We've not seen too many lists out of Japan for that yet. But one card that could and probably should have a lot of potential in that deck is Bonnie. And one that will also have potentially a price rise. Bonnie's a secret rare from OP12. There's no reprint to this card. If you want it, you're buying this print or you're buying a full art. And I don't think a tenner is too bad. Not only could this be good in Ace and Luffy, but just going forward, it's a generically good green card. We've seen Queen style effects all over the place in many different decks. And this Bonnie is, I think, a good option to have. You've also seen this in some builds of Mihawk. It's also a main staple of green Bonnie. So I do think this green Bonnie card is one that's worth owning. And at £10 for a secret rare, that is not too bad. For a secret rare, that is a very good card, in my opinion. Now, as we look ahead to OP16, a lot of those decks are going to be very, very reliant on their inset support, I think. However, Blackbeard already has sort of 2 card pools to pull from. Firstly, the yellow Warlord support, and it's only really this Boa I think you would potentially want to pick up now. This is seeing less play than it did last set. In OP14, Blue-Yellow Boa was very, very dominant. She was one of the best decks in the game, if not the best deck in the game. However, in OP15, that's not the case anymore. Enel can be quite tricky to deal with how aggressive he can be, and Blue-Yellow Nami is still a very poor matchup. And with Lucy also being able to bot deck your stuff with the use of Barry Pistol and the loss of Pudding, Boa has a lot harder of a time closing out games. So if you do think yourself you might be a Blackbeard player, I think these Boas for a 5 are not too bad with how powerful this card is. Any deck that this card can go in, it will go in. And I would be very surprised if this doesn't see play in Blackbeard. Of course, you can't divert into it, but the trigger could happen. And also the main effect just being so good. It's a heal and a burn. Like, it's crazy, and Blackbeard is a Warlord type leader. Another couple of Blackbeard cards, 5-cost Kuzan. If we get a decent amount of 4 or 5-cost Blackbeard cards that are important, which it looks like we may well do, this Kuzan's going to be good. It lets you swap him out for something better and draw a card, effectively giving you a play for free. And on top of that, if your opponent isn't playing rest cards, obviously Enel will be able to rest him. But if you're playing into a deck that cannot rest, well, this card cannot be removed. So you can just dump this on 5, get a free swing, and then turn it into something else, and draw a card. This is an absolutely bonkers card. It was just previously locked to one specific deck, and now this has another home. I think picking this up at £3 might not be too bad, because if this sees play, this card's kind of old, and it's a popular. The Blackbeard Pirates are a popular archetype, so if this deck is good, I could see this rising a lot higher than £3. Final Blackbeard card is 10-cost Blackbeard. I'm really excited to get to play this card. I never played Blackbeard because I didn't like the playstyle. I thought the playstyle was kind of boring, and it also meant that your opponent was literally not having fun. Because typically, when I sit down to play a card game, I like to play my cards, and Blackbeard just said, no, you can't play your cards. Your cards don't do anything. And I just found games against Blackbeard were really dull a lot of the time. So I never really played the deck, but now that you can play this, card in a deck that's not just don't play the game simulator, I'm pretty hyped for that. I think the synergy with this leader is obvious. You get to negate and freeze one of your opponent's characters, and you get to block one, and then you can use your leader effect to divert a swing into this Blackbeard after blocking. So you get out of 3 swings, which is insane value. Absolutely insane. And negating your opponent's leader can be really good in certain matchups. You can stop Nami from going to 7, for example. Or you can stop Bonnie from resting one of your characters. Or even you can stop Lucy from using their leader effects to trash cards as defense. Really powerful card. Probably not going to rise too much because it was in PRBO2, but definitely make sure you've got your playset. If you can pick up 3 or 4 off the same guy, you'll be eating good once Blackbeard comes out, because I think this is probably going to be a pretty good card. One question I do have, though, is with this being a 10 cost and this being a 9 cost, are we running full playsets of each? I'm not sure. Both seem like extremely powerful cards for the deck, and only time will tell which ones are actually good. One more card that could be useful to pick up for OP16, and this is only if you like alt arts, because this card does have a rare version which is worth buffing. However, the 10 cost buggy I think could have a little bit of potential in the new buggy leader, with his leader effect making it such that you can constantly replace your board as it's getting removed with the Prisoner of Impel down. I think it is very possible that you could build up to having a board where you can actually play this buggy and him stick. If you're able to get sort of early combos where you pick up one of your own dudes and play a prisoner, and then your opponent starts playing board and you play another one, and you play another one, maybe there's some kind of 8 or 7 cost in this deck that you play out on your 8th on turn. I can sort of conceive a world where you can play this on curve and have it stick in the new blue buggy leader. A little bit of conjecture, may well not happen, and may well just be too much of a combo to ask for, but if you do like alt arts, this one actually looks really nice, and it's not too bad right now. About £8 on average for this card. I don't think this would ever be a 4 of, but it could be worth thinking about as maybe like getting a couple copies for buggy if you do envision yourself potentially a buggy player. Now, the card that's just sort of more generically useful is a Samurai Luffy. This is starting to see more success as time goes on. More and more red players are just choosing to play this because it's really quite good. Combos with all your red reduction and removal stuff very nicely. And also just gives you this nice 2k. £1.50 for this, not too bad. If you can pick these up for £1, I think you're better off having these than not. Again, with no PRBO3 confirmed. However, do note again, this is OP13, so there will be a reprint of this at some point in the future, at which point this card will likely drop a little bit in price. Now, we'll probably have a video dedicated to the next 6 wave of starter decks a little bit closer to the time, once we know what's going on with OP16, but I think this Sabo is a pretty good buy right now. This is as low as £5, which is a quarter of the Luffy's price, and this is a good card. The one problem this card has is it's sort of pseudo-locks to Red Black Sabo, in that it doesn't really do a lot in any other deck. However, with Red Black Sabo getting a starter deck in July, I think this is a really good buy now at £5. I would be very surprised if this doesn't make the cut in Sabo in July, because this is like the card that deck is built around. I feel like they're going to try and buff it in other ways, maybe give it a new 4-drop or a 5-drop, even a 7-drop, so it doesn't just lose if it goes first, would be cool. But I'd very much expect this to see play in the deck. And if you do like Sabo, or you think you might want to build him if he ends up being good, I think now's a good time to grab this Sabo. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any other tips on cards that you're buying or selling now, personally, do let us all know in the comments. Let me know what you think about the OP15 prices. I think generally they're not too bad. With how much hype this set's got, and how many like really powerful new cards. Having the most expensive SR be around £13, it's higher than we've been used to in the past, but it's not too bad. And you've got to remember, this is the last expanded set. Once we hit OP16, we're back to 10 SRs per set, 2 secret rares, crazy anniversary sets aside. So I think once we hit OP16, prices will generally come down for these new sets. But whilst we've got this EBO4 split happening, they're just naturally going to be a bit higher because everything's a little bit rarer. Either way, thank you for watching and hope you have a lovely rest of your day.